Earlier, we were learning about which processes help to form different types of rocks. So now we're going to take the information that was in that chart and we're going to use it to help us create a diagram. Right now, this is what your diagram page looks like. We need to add to it just a little bit to help make this a little easier for you. So down on the bottom between igneous and metamorphic, I need you to draw a pile of magma. This is your magma. Go ahead and label it. Then over here on the side, between igneous and sedimentary, I need you to add a whole bunch of sediments. I know everybody likes making sediments. Go ahead and add a whole big pile, but then also be sure that you give it a label. It should be called sediment. Now, we're going to go back to our chart from yesterday. I'm going to help you with a couple of arrows, and then I'm going to leave you to figure out the rest on your own. Let's start by figuring out how we get this magma in the first place. Well, magma can only form through one process, and that process is, you guessed it, melting. So we need to draw an arrow from metamorphic, from igneous, and even from sedimentary. And you need to label all of those arrows melting. Now, if we have another process that's going the same way between the same two types of rocks, it is okay for them to share one arrow and just add a new label to it. It'll help keep your diagram from getting too jumbled up and confusing. So right now our diagram has 3 arrows that say melting because that's the only way we can get magma. Next, let's talk about how we get igneous rocks. Remember, igneous rocks can form inside or outside of the earth, but it always happens when magma cools and hardens and becomes solid. That means that we need to draw an arrow from magma pointing back towards igneous rocks. We need to label that arrow with the process crystallization. Go ahead and do that now. Good. Now, I'm going to get you started on metamorphic rocks. Remember, metamorphic rocks are rocks that go from one type of rock to another without ever becoming a liquid. That means we can't have any arrows coming from magma. We have to have an arrow coming straight from sedimentary, and we'll need another arrow coming straight over from igneous, skipping past magma. Now, both of these arrows can have multiple labels because we talked about how in our chart, both heat and pressure and deformation both help to form metamorphic rocks. So, on both of these arrows you just drew, you need to write heat and pressure . but you can also add next to it or right underneath it on the same arrow, you can add deformation, because both of those processes can take sedimentary rocks or igneous rocks and turn them straight into metamorphic rocks. Alright, these same labels should be on this arrow down here as well, going from igneous to metamorphic. I'm going to leave you to figure out which arrows need to point towards from igneous to sediment, from sediment to sedimentary, from sedimentary back to sediment, and even from metamorphic over to sediment. Be sure to look back at that chart we created earlier to help you make sure that you get all of the processes in your diagram. Good luck!